Hi there, welcome back to the Noah Presgrove case. Today we're going to be doing a discussion, me giving my opinions and thoughts on the matter of hit and run versus a beating. You could always say there's things in between, alternative causes of death, or some kind of combination or a variant of not a hit and run, but a vehicular-based death. But we can get a bit more into that later. There is no script. This is all on the spot from in here, what I think, what I can remember at least. I'm not an expert when it comes to medical stuff or the biology, the human anatomy and injuries like that, but still I can share some common points and maybe question some stuff which hasn't been brought before. Welcome to those that are currently hearing this live premiere. Feel free to make use of the live chat box on the right hand side of the screen, share your thoughts there, reactions, and if at the end of this video your opinions, outlooks change, or you got any questions, drop a comment down below under the video and can respond back later. Down below you'll find a pinned message by me with additional links if you do want to support this channel at times of BS and uncertainty, the way things have gone in recent time. But obviously need to shout out to the individuals such as last night. I can't remember everybody's name. I think it was Skeptical, Cleo, Hardy Boys, and maybe the odd other person, Christy as well. Very positive to see. And I guess the feedback as well. So there's no harm in doing a video now. As I said, I want to try and continue that trend of more of these original type of videos, because whilst there are a lot of conversations going on elsewhere and it can be useful, I think I need to dial it back and focus back in on YouTube itself as a platform and my presence. That's what I'm going to try and do. And if in the future we need to look back at like big breaking news, Facebook, Reddit, then that's what we can do. In the meantime, we'll just focus here, kind of like what was done in the Dylan Brown's case. Hopefully the quality is okay. Based off file size and practicality, I thought I'll just keep it 1080, 30 frames per second, because there's not much going on. I did change the audio from the last one, what I did. I used mono audio as earlier on. Yesterday it was spatial 3D. I don't know if it made a big difference, but who knows with the synchronicity of the volume to the audio. This should be okay because it's just a single video. The one that I did earlier on the Kenny Veach case, that worked okay. Supposedly it's just a third-party app, a glitch. It's just unfortunate the timing of it with the previous stuff going on. You think it links, it doesn't always. And that's kind of like a theme within this case. Not everything links. Not everything mentioned has to link, but some people may see things which aren't there or try and put a case across to suit their own narrative or agenda. And that could apply to the cause of death. At the end of the day, officially speaking, on the autopsy report, cause of death unknown. Time of death unknown. Of course, the time of death where Jack mentioned 4 a.m. is when Noah passed away. Whether that's something that he knows firsthand because he was there present, I think he should be interviewed for that reason, right? And if it's simply put as, well, I don't know, directly, I was just told that by the police. Okay then, well, why haven't the police entered it into some kind of database or reached out to the ME, right? I mean, the ME didn't make it easy for themselves unless they did it on purpose when they had to go to Lawton or took an alternative route to do some other thing on the day, Monday, 4th September 2023, when it should have been going down to the highway. It was delayed by a few hours, meaning liver mortis set in on Noah's body. And now maybe I can do this as a separate poll on my main channel page, the community tab. Would the ME report have been drastically different if they actually showed up on time and it wasn't delayed? Would you get more rich evidence, details and new leads, or would we still be where we are right now? You let me know, but I'll be doing a poll, be on the lookout for it. That's if I can remember. I was doing polls all over the place in the past. Even the North Pole contacted me regarding one, but I've not done many since. Just not really thought about it, but I'm sure I can bring it back. I said, no script here, so it's just like raw talk. Kind of like how it was yesterday for that portion of the bit. Now, if you do want to catch up on last night's discussions and previous videos, top right corner of the screen, you'll see the eye symbol. Click up there, you'll see the drop-down box and follow it, including the playlist. And you'll also find the video which I uploaded earlier to do with the latest breaking news within the Kenny Veach mystery. Very eye-opening. Be sure to check it out, don't miss out. So, Well, as we've got it into perspective, the cause of death officially hasn't been mentioned. It's seen as unknown, kind of like a mystery. Same case scenario in terms of how that 7-year-old girl fell into the water. The Warwicker accident, boating one in 2020, which Caleb Newton was operating the boat at the time with a group of people on board, including another adult of 37 years of age. No name was given then. But that was never really filled in, resolved. You look back at the news reports, it was seen as not suspicious, unknown. Oh, is that good enough? I don't think so. Surely you would want to get to the bottom of it, but I guess certain family members didn't. So there you go. In terms of this case, though, then people aren't just settling down. People are still trying to push on, whether that be the family, whether it be certain friends, whether it be Kane and Pressy, whether it be people online in the community, whether it be keeping the case alive, trying to spread awareness, petitions and whatnot. I know a viewer on my channel said something about change.org, that petition there, social hosting rules. Because this is done in one single take, I won't be able to include it in this video because that means editing and all that, and there's not enough time for it. But maybe as a separate standalone video, I could do it. But taking consideration, I have done a video about it previously, and I showed it on screen. I don't know how easy it is to find, but I did cover it at the time, so that's something. So let's just focus in. First and foremost, what are my thoughts? What do I think, as for the cause of death? So I said I'm not an expert when it comes to injuries to the body, but when I think of blunt force trauma, being hit, contact being made to Noah's body with some kind of blunt force instrument, object, to what size may vary, I'm focusing in on that, right? We're not seeing any puncture wounds like a knife or anything sharp like that. When it comes to blunt force, blunt objects, which don't pierce or penetrate, but more so cause impact to the surface level, the surface area, depending on the size of it. You know, like when you get a hammerhead, a sledgehammer, a spade bigger surface area, sledgehammer, smaller surface area, but a lot more power generated in a concentrated spot if it did make contact with another object or a person. A golf club, for example, smaller surface area. The edge of it could cause some kind of cut, tear on the skin, depending. So I'm jumping straight in with the shape of an item or items which could cause the death of Noah. I think that's what needs to be done. Yeah, it can be very holistic and vague and say either hit and run or beating. Is there anything in between which could bridge the gap? Well, at least from the news articles, the official news programs and all that, when covering this case, they said they ruled the hit and run out. The police ruled it out. Caleb Newton, of all people, said that as well. Hit and run was ruled out. But he also believes himself that it wasn't a beating based off the injuries. And that's supposedly what he was told from what the police had to say. That's interesting. Well, if it's not a beating, if it's not a hit and run, what else can it be? A vehicular-based death? But this is the thing. As soon as you mention vehicular-based death, oh, you're going brainwashed to do with a hit and run. No. You can die by a mode of transportation. It doesn't have to be a hit and run. Hit and run is a specific cause of death with the usage of a vehicle or mode of transportation, right? If somehow, let's say you were a mechanic, you were working on a car or vehicle and you were underneath and then it collapsed and it crushed, killed you, that's not a hit and run, is it? It's a vehicular-based death, maybe accidental, but then again, depending on who you work for or legal issues, could there be any backlash on the company, any suing, any negligence, incompetence? Who knows? There's like smaller, finer details that. Am I saying that Noah Presgrove was crushed by a vehicle hanging from the heights above? No. We don't see any cranes. We don't see any vantage points where a vehicle could just suddenly drop from the air or from a plane and land on him. No, I don't think so. People were saying, could the vehicle have been used when driving and then it jumped over a gap and then landed on Noah? My question would be, what's Noah doing on the floor in the first place? Are you suggesting he was stood up and then the vehicle was driving, bridged a gap and knocked him over and landed? So in terms of a hit and run, normally, you're in a vehicle, you make contact with the person, you knock them down. Whether you get out or not, you drive on at the end of the day. You've hit them and now you've run off. How does it apply if, in a different situation, if you are on site, on property, you're driving, somehow you hit Noah, intentional or not, panic or whatever, and you decide, right, we best move the body onto the highway. Is that considered a hit and run? Normally a hit and run is when you make contact with the person, you knock them over and you drive off, you run away from the scene. But what happens if at the scene you knock the person over, but instead of you running away, you make the body run away and dump it elsewhere? Is that exactly called a hit and run? Because you're not exactly running away. Because wherever you're going with the body to dispose of. Now, as well, just as a random question, if you were in a boat, some kind of sea transportation, lake, ocean, river, whatever, you're driving along in a boat and you somehow collide with a person, a swimmer, and kill them. If you continue driving on, is that called a hit and run? But boat-based vehicle, whatever, hit and run, does that still apply? What happens if you were in a plane and you were on a landing strip taking off and somehow you managed to knock someone over and fly off into the sky? Is that a hit and run? Or is there a different term for that? I'm just interested, just a random little question if anybody does know. But that aside, the concept of a hit and run, majority of people that seem to think that's the cause of death, I guess, associate it with at the highway and only the highway, right? Is there anyone that feels there is a hit and run, but it occurred on site of the party house property and then moved the body on onwards? See, what I'm trying to get to the bottom of, whilst yeah, you can greet people, team hit and run and team beating Noah, right? Is there anyone in between that thinks it is a hit and run, but it didn't happen at the highway? Is there anyone who thinks it is a beating, but it didn't happen on site of the property? That's what I want to know. Is there anyone that feels it's not a hit and run, it's not a beating, it's something else? Now, those people, would they think it's at the highway or on site of the property, the party house? Because this is the thing. The biggest issue that I have with the concept of hit and run, it's not so much the injuries, it's not so much the blood loss, it's the location of where it's happened. The fact that Noah Presgrove, to an extent, was last seen at the party house, at least walking away to cool off. I think Jack said he was heading east, as if towards the highway. Did Noah truly make it all the way to the highway or not? Who knows? And previous times at the party where he supposedly walked off, as what Jasmine Millan supposedly told Caden Pressey, and then Caden Pressey relayed it in the private interview with police, that in between 2 to 3 in the morning, Monday, September 4th, Noah walked off to cool off. So it's like twice in one day within space of a morning time. And before that, I'm guessing Noah was reaching out to different people, wanting a lift back home, wasn't successful. So whilst Noah may have been known to walk off, wander about, but always return back, at final time, he was unsuccessful. Did he meet someone along the way on site of the property and got hurt, got killed? Or did he go beyond and exit property, go onto the highway, walk north about 1 mile and then get killed somehow? That's what I'm trying to work out. Because what would anyone be doing on a highway And to be honest, where Noah's body was found on the side, it'd make you think Noah must have been walking in the middle of the road or in one of the lanes, stumbling about. I'm not saying that that's definitely happened, but that's what you would think. For the body to be on the side of the roadway, on the left, a vehicle would be probably coming towards them, heading towards Terrell. So that would be going south. But surely there'd be some distance with lights, which it depends how bright the lights are, unless the stopping distance is not great enough. So by the time you see something, you've already made contact. Now, well, you had that guy called Chris calling in who was concerned, thinking he hit Noah, but it turned out to be a hog, or supposedly. Some were saying there was conflict with his story, whether he was coming or going from the casino past Terrell. Is he going north? Is he going south? Because if you go north and Noah is leaving the party house to go on the highway, Noah would be on the left-hand side of the road or the left lane, likely, and Chris would be on the right-hand side, I believe, yes. So how would they make contact? Surely he'd be able to swerve around, unless Noah's stumbling about, not walking in a straight line, and goes in the line of the vehicle. But still, the fact there's no debris, that's the second factor. I know people like to jump in on the blood loss, but the fact that there's no debris, that's why I asked the question. A common hit and run in a rural, a suburban, what do you call it, a busy populated area, urban, regardless of environment, what is a common type of hit and run, the common type of injuries to the victim, fatal or not? And is there normally debris? If 90 to 95% of the time there are specific injuries and there is a form of debris during a hit and run, and it just so happens to not match with Noah's case, you could say it's a bit abnormal, it's a bit odd. More likely to rule out the hit and run concept. And it's saying, other people say, oh, we're going round in circles, it's not a hit and run. We know it's not, we know it's it. Well, it's interesting how we know it's not a hit and run, yet the ME report and the autopsy says, oh, well, we don't know what it really is. They could have said in brackets, not a hit and run, or something like that. Well, it was just seen as unknown. And when it's considered unknown, at least officially speaking in the documents, it means could be anything. It could be a hit and run, even though it has been ruled out supposedly. So that's what I thought was interesting. I mean, would I word it as, I know it's not a hit and run? I don't like that type of wording personally. That's probably just me. I'd simply word it as, it seems less likely to be a hit and run based off the factors, the features at the site. And when compared to a common hit and run scenario, an event, there's a contrast. That's what I think. Like when Jack Newton was trying to push it about a semi-truck and the mirror colliding with Noah's body, Noah's head. The problem with that is I don't think the mirror would even reach Noah. Noah would probably be underneath it. Like, you know, as the mirror goes like that, he's underneath because of the height of the truck. So I'd say that kind of rules that out, depending on what type of vehicle it was. But most trucks are of a certain height, probably wouldn't make contact. There's that. Blood loss. Where's the rest of it? I think some people are putting a case across that it's been absorbed back into the body or so in different areas. Could anyone ever explain the patch of blood though by the side of Noah's body, a space in between with no droplets or splatter marks? Could anyone explain that? And, you know, let's just say if people are so adamant it's a hit and run, do those same said individuals believe in the tampering with evidence at the scene afterwards, from what Caden Pressey saw compared to what Tyler Hardy saw, and then Jimmy Williams, the police guy? Because at first Noah's on his side, neck like twisted, because I guess because it'd been broken, arms and legs spread out. And yet when Jimmy Williams, the police guy, came along at 6:15 a.m. or 6:18, he said that Noah's legs were closed and his arms were not tucked in. No mention of a fetal position. Yet there was a strong obsession with that in the past. Fetal position. Kept going on and on and on about it. Ever since, that's faded away. I think the reason why people were so adamant or fixated on the fetal position, because that links more to a beating scenario, doesn't it? You're getting hit, you're getting whacked, you're getting stamped and kicked. You're going to be like that. You might curl up to protect your body. Would that be considered defensive injuries? Self-defense wounds also, where you put your hands up so then you get whacked on the arms? Or is more of a self-defense wound along the lines of you put your hand out and then you get bit? You grip onto something and it shreds the skin. Shredded tips as one of the fixations as well within the case. And yet, when I looked at the official autopsy documents, from what I can remember, there was no mention of it. So that's also problematic too. If it's true, that injury should have been mentioned on the autopsy report, shouldn't it? Right? It's not a major or fatal injury. Could still be important enough not to include it in the autopsy because it could make the case a bit easier and they don't want it like that. Maybe not. Let me know your thoughts down below. So the location of where it happened, I do find problematic. If Noah was hit by a vehicle, let's just put it that way, and he was on the highway, would his body be found on the side, the hard shoulder? Or would it be more in the middle of the road? I guess it would depend how you're hit and from what angle. If it's a glance, a clip, it could fling you to the side. Depends with what force momentum. I believe someone in the chat recently said the speed limit on that highway is 65 miles per hour, which, I mean, decent speed, but I'm sure you'll get some here and there that will go a bit faster at times. Once again, I'm just putting it all into play, all these different factors, because I've never really done it myself. I've mentioned a few little points here and there, okay? So there are factors where it makes me think it's less likely to be a hit and run. Now, as for transportation-based deaths, vehicular-based death, that hasn't been completely taken off the table. Only hit and run, which is a specific cause of death. Vehicles could still be involved. And I think that's what Justin Roy has been suggesting in recent time, which is interesting because, at least from what I heard in the past, Justin Roy was talking about beatings and golf clubs. But now the reference of a vehicle could be responsible. Not the side-by-side, but another event after that. In terms of the side-by-side, there was a fixation in the past that, oh, it must be that killed Noah. And that shower, well, that's just a cover. That was actually getting rid of all the evidence and clearing up the mess, what's happened. But really, if it was just along the lines of a roll-over accident, driving gone wrong, drunk driving, well, that would be on Noah because he was drunk driving. That would be on him. And if it was that bad, the rollover, how come no one else died within it then? If there were passengers, why would it only be Noah? Exactly, right? And in terms of the shower situation, there is supposedly footage in the background which showed Noah alive, awake, conscious, or somewhat conscious. So that would counter certain points, wouldn't it? And yeah, we haven't seen the shower footage, not all of us. So we can be skeptical there. But one thing that did help was what Caden said in the private interview, that he was shown the footage of the side-by-side rollover, and the timestamp of that video was 2:40 a.m, a time of when Caden was asleep then at the party. 2 minutes later, he was woken up by Alicia Lee on the phone call. That's an interesting reference, isn't it? But side-by-side rollover, Noah gets up, or gets out, bloodied nose, injured, blood loss. Worth taking that in mind, isn't it? A form of blood loss. Would there have been enough time for that blood to regenerate or heal up, whatever it is, in the space of time of 2:40 a.m. to 4 in the morning of the supposed time of death? You know what I'm saying? Because technically, even though the side-by-side rollover may not have been the death of Noah, and you could argue and say it's not a direct correlation to the death either, separate events. Still, Noah got hurt in 2 separate occasions on the same day in a short space of time between them. And that there was blood loss. There was Noah's blood on the property, literally, from what Caden said and what he's witnessed through the video. Not in a suspicious way, but still, blood on the property, on the land, and then blood on the highway. So if you wanted to be awkward, and you said, where, all that blood loss, where is it at? Some say it's all on the highway, and others say, no, it can't be because it's just not there. It's got to be elsewhere. And then people respond back and say, no, you're all wrong. Technically, you can be right and say, yeah, there's blood loss at the highway, but some of it is missing. Some of it is actually on the site of the property party house because of the bloodied nose. Blood is blood at the end of the day. If it belongs to that same individual, they've lost a form of blood. Was it regenerated? Did they get that blood back? I don't know, I'm not an expert, but in that space of time. And it all comes down to the extent of that injury with the nose. Enough blood loss to cause a person to be a bit lightheaded, a bit dizzy, disorientated, or quite minor. Sometimes damage to the nose can impact your breathing as well. And if you're in a combat sport, it can have consequences in your performance. Things like that. On top of Noah supposedly being drunk as well, would make him more vulnerable, can make it harder to defend yourself at times. Now, interesting how one thing that's gone very quiet since is JJ bump ass and the bite mark or so on the hand and needing antibiotics but not going directly to the medical place to get a hold of him because he didn't want to be on record or notes or questioned or linked back to the party. But that bite mark or so was caused by Noah Presgrove when biting into bump ass hand when defending or fighting back Noah. Do we have proof, hard evidence of it? Not exactly. I believe there was that Snapchat conversation and message from JJ Bump Ass point of view, but it wasn't clear enough, it wasn't good enough, the explanation. You see, an event like that faded away, but the concept being pushed at the time, a fixation on it, because it came to the beating situation. One thing that you can say that's consistent within this case, whether you're team beating or team hit and run, the sets of people in those groups and areas with their causes of death want to cling on to certain aspects and push and push and push because they're passionate and they believe in a certain outcome. I get it, it's normal. But toning it down, scaling it back, can we try and break it down a little bit? Well, I think we can have done so far. So with the factors that I've outlined, it seems less likely to be a hit and run, at least. In terms of a vehicle crushing Noah's body, which was it Jody Barth or another expert said on Partners in True Crime, that's what could have happened on Noah's back area. But how would that really happen? That Noah's face down on the floor or face up and then a vehicle drives over him partially? But why? That couldn't be an accident, could it? Seems more likely on purpose. See, this is the next factor, and I did briefly mention it. Certain acts of, damage inflicted onto someone, if it's in one go, could be accidental. If it's in multiple goes, maybe less accidental. Like if someone got shot, accidental gun discharge to the head and they died, accident, I guess you'd be done for manslaughter, could still get in trouble. And you could get in further trouble if you tried covering it up or burying the body. You're really incriminating yourself there, right? But, it's an accident. Multiple shots to the head, less likely to be an accident. You might get the exception of an automatic, an assault rifle firing multiple times accidentally and making contact with the person. Could be an accident there, but there's just certain stuff where the more times a person's hit, impacted, the less of an accident it is. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like if you swung your hand about as you were turning around and accidentally slapped someone. You did it again to the same person, it's probably less of an accident and more done with intent. Just like with the golf clubs, right? Damage to the golf clubs, which Kane and Pressey found at the scrap pile at a time in the past. In 2023, I think. Didn't think much of it at the time, but then later a conversation with Dale and Presgrove, and that realisation kicked in. But they were long gone by then. I'm assuming basically Kane and Pressey went back to the scrap pile, or Dale and did, couldn't find them. but there was that comment made that the golf clubs were damaged. Oh, and then people jump on that. Oh, well, if they damaged the golf clubs, then that must mean they were used on Noah's body, hence why they were broken. Possibly, yeah. It was got to take in consideration that at the party they were used, and Cain said that they used them. Caden, Noah, maybe Isaac and some others, smashing random objects. That can cause damage to the clubs. If you're hitting things you're not supposed to be hitting unless it's balls. That's what golf clubs are for, mainly. So you've got to take that into consideration. Any blood or dried blood on those golf clubs, no mentioned by Ken Pressey there, but depending on how long they've been out there for, probably would have washed away possibly. The fact that they were moved on afterwards, you could say it's a coincidence, or you could say there's more to it. Other people out there say, you know, golf clubs, they weren't used, they couldn't be used, or very unlikely, or that it's been ruled out, right? But can you explain why they were removed from the party house then? Who had the right to do that when they didn't belong to them, not their possessions, right? Hit and run or not, beating or not, or another form of death. Why would any of Noah's personal items and possessions, or even on behalf of someone else's like Dalen, why should they be taken away, moved on by strangers, partygoers, family members, friends of friends? And when I say family members, I don't mean family members of Noah, but more so maybe the Newtons, the Millans, the Howards, the Carters, whatever you want to call them, right? At the end of the day, Noah's family should have had the right to be able to collect items and stuff. I mean, it's like with Noah's shorts. It's really gone under the radar, and I might have to make a note of it on my phone. Unfortunately, probably don't have the clip on me right now, but I will do on one of my previous videos where Partners in True Crime commented on the condition of the shorts. Ripped, shredded. Why not focus in on that? Considering a lot of people like to focus in on the injuries, damage sustained to Noah's body, does that justify a beating? Can it be proven or not? Does this justify a hit and run or not? What about the state of Noah's clothing? Whatever he was wearing at the time, what condition were those things in? Well, as for Noah's mismatched shoes, one, his own Adidas one, the other, Caden Pressey's Hey Dude shoe, which sounds a bit odd, but that's what supposedly was on Noah's body at the time, with grass within the laces. Why is that? Was that grass collected in the shoes of when Noah was near to the highway, near to that grass verge and the vegetation there? Maybe, maybe not. Or was that grass collected in the shoelaces more so on site of the party house property with the land, the grass nearby? And if so, when exactly? Side-by-side rollover? If Noah wasn't strapped in, falling out, rolling about, getting back up, legs, feet dragging near onto the floor, vegetation collecting within the shoelace, that's possible. If not then, beyond, after, at a time of 3:30, when Noah supposedly walked away, and if there was a conflict, an argument, a fight, escalated or not, somehow maybe if there was wrestling or getting dragged, that the shoes could have made contact with the ground and collected grass that way, both taken into consideration. So yeah, there's that. But be sure to let me know what you think down below in the comments or the live chat right now. Do you kind of understand where I'm coming from and where I'm currently at? And yeah, hopefully I'm not talking Chinese or Japanese this time around. My mouth should be moving the same speed as this volume. And no, I can't do an actual impression of an out of sync voice. But I've seen on YouTube, there was some girl on the news, or might have even been just a viral video where they say hello, but the mouth moves first before the noise. It's like, hello. I don't know if that worked then. I think it would take a lot of practice. It's like coordination. It's like playing the drums. You're doing two things almost at the same time, but possibly different rhythm. I just saw a neighbour walk by and he's looking at me. Yeah, what are you going to do? I've not got my whip with me today. Giant bananas on the side. Bag of scented nuts here. Shit, are we in the doctor's office? I hope not. I'm not ready. The hair's wet. I don't know why. But yeah, linking back to this case, this situation. Instead of damage to Noah's body, the injuries, trying to work out what would have caused that. You know what we should do? Besides the shoes as well. Look at Noah's shorts. That has gone heavily under the radar. I'm not talking about how they were handled or tampered with. I'm talking about the damage to them. What the hell caused the ripping and the tearing with Noah's shorts? At the party, the footage, they were perfectly fine. They were a bit dirty, dusty on the back, the bottom area. Maybe if he fell over or sat down at some point, fair enough. But whilst we haven't seen any photos, partners in true crime said they saw the shorts firsthand. They witnessed them. At what point? I don't know. They didn't give it an exact date or time. It could have been around the time of when they said they were coming on down to Terrell, Oklahoma, hanging about the area, doing interviews. But this is what the interesting thing is. They said they were going to go down to the area, do interviews, record stuff, and it was a part of a documentary. What's happened to that? Because ever since, they said they were stepping down publicly, working in the background. Is that documentary still going to be created and published at some point, or has that project been cancelled? It's gone very quiet. I know the likes of that channel, Criminals Hate Me, have been calling out partners in true crime and saying that, oh, that channel's failing because they're not getting any views. I mean, it sounds like it's becoming some kind of competition through evolutionary competitiveness, that type of stuff, inherited over time, generational. Yeah, a little bit childish in a way, but I guess some people see it in that sense. I mean, yes, it's important to get some amount of views if you're trying to spread awareness. Yeah. With partners in true crime, that's what they were able to do, hit the nail on the head. And as for doing other videos and podcasts, maybe it might not work, but that can apply to anyone out there. You try something new, you try something else, it doesn't work. That's why you might get some channels out there which are really fixed or dedicated to just one case, because there's no point changing something that isn't broken. If it works, it works. You stick with it. It makes sense all around. I do try and change it up at times and look at other cases, kind of like the Texas one. But to be honest, to try and spread awareness there, it wasn't exactly a success to begin with. I mean, it's been officially covered and handled. This thing you got to take in mind, yeah. Whether you're online, creator, or something else, you take upon a case, you might look at it, just tell the story, teach people about it, or dig further. But if you stop or step away, it's not the end of the world. At the end of the day, the real people that are doing their jobs assigned to the case, police authorities in real life, that's what matters most. As long as they're present, as for the online presence, it's not as critical. But something like the Kenny Veach case, where at times police authorities' search and rescue stepped down, becoming a cold case, who else can you rely on? That's when there's exceptions with the online presence of people or volunteer hikers, where they put in and get a lot out in terms of spreading that awareness, keeping the cases alive, new material for new people to come across with time viewers and whatnot. As for the Noah Presgrove case, there are authorities working within the case. To what extent, degree, or success rate, who knows? But, you know, that type of stuff, that's its own thing. And as for corruption, I don't like going too deep into that because I won't know everything. But like what we've seen previously with the Waurika city manager getting in trouble in that investigation from January 2024 onwards, there's been some justice there. So in a way, it's corrupt, but at the same time, OSBI doing their job. But it took time. Can the OSBI do the same success there as in the Noah Presgrove case, or could there be conflict? My question, if anyone knows, is there anyone within the OSBI somehow connected conflict of interest with members of some of the party goers or family members? That could be a bit problematic. I just thought I would mention that. Is there really anything else to mention? Yeah, so like when Brooke Bounce Carter was saying how, you know, some of these injuries and the situation with Noah, it wouldn't be caused by fist, or, you know, it doesn't match being fisted. Well, probably not the best way of wording it, but you get what I'm saying. But why does a beating have to just be only associated with fist and hands and legs? You know, nowadays people have to rely on knives, hammers, objects, 2, 5 against 1, cowardly behaviour, no fair fighting anymore, and that can vary all over the place, right? You got to take in consideration, and it is a bit of an outside of the box method, but if there was to be a beating, the accuracy of the beating could be negatively impacted by the alcohol levels of the individual wielding a weapon, an object. You get what I'm saying? Your hand-to-eye coordination could be impacted if you're drunk. Just like if you were drunk, working on the job as a builder, you got a nail, something into a plank of wood with a hammer, try and aim. Oh, I've missed. Try it again. Oh, just skimmed the tip. Not good, is it? The accuracy is impacted. Coordination, disorientated, things like that. Yeah, your aggression levels can increase for some who are drunk, but your accuracy can be negatively impacted, and at times further worsened, which I don't think is a word, but it sounds like one and it should be one. Or it could be actually, I can't remember. But either way, further impacted by being aggressive. People that can get aggressive, worked up in the moment, their accuracy, their lack of self-control can impact their performance, whatever they're doing. Even if it's multiple people on Noah attacking, assaulting, whether it be direct, whether it be a cheap shot, an ambush with multiple, punching or kicking, or more so using objects and items. Like a golf club, you could whack Noah, or you could skim him so it catches the side, clips, which can have its own unique form of injuries. Would that cause the scalp being torn? I guess it depends, maybe the type of club, the angling of it, the force generated by one swing or multiple. Well, multiple, not likely an accident, right? But if you were drunk and you had to finish someone off in one hit, one shot, maybe you might miss. Or maybe you might glance. So they're still alive, they feel pain, injuries inflicted upon them. It requires another hit, another strike, another whack, whatever it is. So I think that could be a possible factor for the extent and the range of varying injuries on Noah's body. I'm going to take that in mind. Accuracy levels. Was there a lack of bruising? I can't really remember much mentioned about bruising, more so about internal injuries, broken bones, so impact caused by blunt force. Some kind of object that's blunt. What exactly? A handheld thing? Or a larger scale object like a vehicle of some sort? And would there be an estimation of the weight? I mean, I guess the heavier the object is and the faster it moves at a certain speed, the more damage it can inflict. So like a sledgehammer, really heavy up top, you swing that at velocity and all that force. Said I'm not a scientist or anything like that, but a lot more impact. And it all comes down to where you hold on the handle, the shaft. If your hand is really high up the shaft, near to the tip, well, you're not going to generate as much force. But if you move your hand away from the tip, move your hand, whether you've got one hand or two hands on the shaft, you work your way down to the base and you swing, it's going to do a lot more impact. It's got, what you call it, leverage or something like that. I guess even like when you're prying open something, a floorboard, a panel, wood, longer extended length, hold on to the lower part of it, there's a bit more leverage. Certain factors can impact it positively or negatively. So if any blunt items were used on Noah, how were the people holding them? Close to the top or lower down, midway? Just another thing to take in mind. As for a vehicle though, bigger surface area, easier to hit someone compared to if you had like a smaller blunt object. But let's just say on the basis that a vehicle was involved after the side-by-side, would it have been the side-by-side the same vehicle used? That's a little question I want to put across. Anyone that thinks it's not a hit and run, but it could be a vehicular-based death, whose vehicle do you think was used? Were any vehicles disposed of shortly afterwards, at the time of Noah's death, post-news, or maybe before? Were any vehicles pressure washed, cleaned down from the grill area? Look back to the Dylan Rounds case, the absolute obsession with the vehicle being washed down. How does it correlate to getting rid of DNA evidence? It was back, it was forth. Did it come to a definitive conclusion? I don't really know at this point, and that's many years on. But it was absolute headache for most people. The main focus in this case has been, was Noah's body washed off maybe outside with a hose pipe, some kind of pressure washer, things like that? Why not let's divert the focus once again to not just Noah, but what about the object, the blunt force item, which may have been used against Noah to cause those injuries? Was that washed down at any point? Was that disposed of? You get what I'm saying? Like how earlier, we analysed to the cows come home and the chimpanzees and the giraffes and the elephants to try and figure out the damage to Noah's body, what it links to, what's likely to cause it. What about the damage to the short? What would cause ripping and tearing? Being catched on something, caught on a sharp object, being pulled away, dragged along. Maybe if the injuries to the body was a bit difficult to work out, you could look at the next best thing, clothing. And it is unfortunate that there is less personal items, possessions at the scene, because some may have been moved on and others were left at the party house. If Noah was wearing his shirt or jacket at the time of his death, could that have protected him from certain injuries? Would that have made it any easier or harder to figure out the cause of death? It's like, if you weren't wearing anything and you got stabbed, you'll see the puncture wound. If you were wearing a bulletproof vest, and a really good one, and you got shot, you could still be alive. But there could be possible bruising, a mark. No puncture, no penetration, but blunt force. That bullet, the stopping power with making contact with the armor vest, the ballistics, how many layers, slowing it down like an airbag, compacting it all. But whilst that's happening, that stopping force is causing the plate or whatever shielding the bullet to press inwards to the body, which could cause bruising, or it, depending on the force and the caliber, could cause maybe broken bones within. You can get those gun test videos online, Kentucky Ballistics and whoever else that does the shootings and test videos out there, the ballistic gel, use the armor plating, maybe demolition wrench as well. It's all good. It has its uses and applications, to even the case with Noah Presgrove. The fact that Noah Presgrove had less clothing on, there was more room for possible, what you call it, abrasions or marks on the surface level of the body. More so that than bruises. And normally when you are attacked, injured with like blunt items, it can cause bruising to the surface level and deep tissue. It's like Houston Jones on YouTube, who's got whacked, hit, scientific purposes. And then a few days later, you see all that bruising coming to the surface of the skin, right? Now, could any bruising be lost or gained depending on the time of when Noah's body is found, reported on, and when the ME comes on down to take notes? How long does it take for bruising to go away or to appear? I'm not an expert, but if anyone can fill that in, that would be useful. I mean, normally associated with a hit and run is the normally bruising to the body. Yes or no? In terms of a beating, is there normally bruising associated to the victim? I'd say more so, yeah, there, because when I think back to, when you see, well, really anywhere, even news reports and articles, a person got brutally beaten, assaulted, an elderly person, they've got like a swollen eye, big bruising under or over the eye, the cheek, and all over. And that's by being punched normally or kicked, which is a blunt force. But an object like a steel pipe, a baseball bat, a cricket bat, things like that, shouldn't that cause bruising as well? Unless it's more deep tissue because it's done with more force, maybe. As for being stabbed, impaled, that doesn't really cause bruising, it just causes penetration and cuts things within. I guess you still get internal bleeding in a way though from being stabbed or penetrated. But in terms of blunt force, the body's shocked within and things can break inside. You talk about the broken ribs, broken vertebrae, certain levels around the back. So neck broken or described as virtually decapitated within, ribs broken. That can happen by being whacked or hit by something hard with enough force and power. One shot or multiple, depends, doesn't it? Angling of certain impact. Does the angling of impact determine where the body could be found or fell? Well, if we're talking about a hit and run, then yeah, on a highway. But if it didn't happen at the highway and it happened elsewhere, what position would his body have been in? Now, if there was any attempts made to wash down anything at the party house property or nearby, if police had got down there sooner, if the reports were made in quicker, would police have seen any potential evidence being disposed of? Any signs of evidence being destroyed of, washed away? Because it depends on the humidity and the weather at the time. I mean, the colder it is and wetter, well, no, not the wetter it is, because then that can conflict with the man-made wetness. So like if you had certain climate temperature of it being quite cold, not too windy, not enough precipitation, not really any, not enough evaporation or factors of that, but cool enough to keep an area wet and somewhat damp, you could go there and think, oh, there's a pool of water, there's a wet patch here. I wonder why exactly. We saw wet patches in some of the party footage, and what Caden described afterwards, 6:30 in the morning onwards, those wet patches could have been caused by anything really, but it was on the front porch area, the same spot where Avery and Carter Combs were arguing post news of Noah walking away from the party and not returning back at least. So take that into consideration. Is there anything else? The side factor and event, Sunday night, Monday morning. No time given, but it would have helped a lot. From what Caden Pressey supposedly witnessed, Travis Monson, Colton Newton, who supposedly wasn't supposed to be returning back to the party because on a Saturday when he first attended, even though later he said he didn't, but he said he did previously, that when he was talking to Carter, Jack, younger brother, told him, don't be returning back. From a jealousy, can't talk to Jack's girlfriend because he thinks they're cheating. But supposedly they weren't. Okay, being told not to return back, but supposedly he did on Sunday. Is that what Caden meant by the guys returned back to the party house? Maybe. Sunday night, Monday morning, as it was described by him, taking alcohol. Taking alcohol, were they already drunk or were they about to get drunk? And it all comes down to the timing. If they came on down at 3:30 or just a bit later, would they have crossed paths with Noah Presgrove? Makes you think. Also, you've got to take in mind, what's the ratio in general of partygoers on the Sunday night, Monday morning schedule? What's the ratio of partygoers that were present who did not have a vehicle of their own, whether they drive or not? They just simply got a lift down to the party house. How many people at the party house had their own vehicle present? Noah Presgrove would have been in that field, that same boat, but on the Sunday at least, afternoon or so, when returning back to the party, he chose to get picked up, which is not his fault, but it does make you think, if Noah Presgrove used his vehicle and if it was functional at the time, If Noah was to use his vehicle on the Sunday to get down there, and then the following day, Monday morning, would Noah Presgrove have got in that side-by-side rollover or not? If not, maybe he would have used his vehicle instead. Just trying to work out, was there an attempt made, an act of desperation to try and get away from the party house? He reached out earlier to partygoers. Can I have a lift? Can I go home? No, 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 no. Rejected, rejected. Last ditch attempt. Right. If you're not going to take me home, I'm going to take myself home. I'm going to take your keys as well. But then that would mean that the passengers in that vehicle also wanted to go home too. Why have we never heard the names of those partygoers in that side-by-side vehicle? Is it that difficult to know the names? Surely someone must know. Of course, once again, CCTV footage would have done a lot of work for us if it had been used properly, if it was working properly, unless it was and it just got altered with after. Who knows, it's more questioning in a way, because it was described as, oh, it did show some footage of some Texas boys leaving the party house, but not everything beforehand. That's very convenient, isn't it? High-end cameras, they're not doing the job properly. But I can't talk too much because I've got a high-end device, and you've seen how shit my videos have been recently, or at least how inactive I've been, but, you know, that's out of my control. But, you know, in all seriousness, if certain things were present and made public, or at least were collected in the first place and not lost, including maybe cameras as well inside, could tell a whole new story, or at least fill in all the grey areas. So I think I might leave it there for now, because I'm trying to think of everything which maybe I didn't quite, you know, some things I didn't mention previously, other stuff that I did mention, but it might have been messed up because of last night's video towards the end, but this should be more refined and a bit clearer. So, although I may have not given a clear answer, if you've listened long enough, you would know which way I'm leaning towards, but I'm not going to completely dismiss a vehicular-based death. What I do want to put a question across is, if some kind of vehicular transportation-based death or action occurred, not a hit and run, but some other means, getting crushed, getting run over, getting dragged, would that have been the be-all and end-all of Noah's injuries and extent to his death? Or would it have played a role and then more happened after that, or more happened before that, right? It's like when we talked about the beating scenario. Just one person? No, maybe 5 guys. And we're not talking about the place you get food from, or another situation where a person's on a sofa and 5 people are crowding behind that chair. No, we had some very dodgy edits regarding that in the past, if some people remember. Yeah, I was very good with the edits and random stuff. But we saw it on some of the articles, Daily Mail, and some of the experts, where they said it could be about 5 guys. Sounded very specific, beating Noah down. That's what certain experts thought at the time. What do they think now? Well, we've not really seen them speak since, because there's not really been much news articles or coverage or any opinions changing there. So maybe when time comes about, there might be another update, but, you know, you would have thought that would have happened by the first anniversary. That wasn't really the case. But like with the beating scenario, the possibilities of that, oh, it wasn't just fist, it was items, it was tools and objects. Okay. Was it just one object? No, it was a range. It could have been a golf club, yeah. But it wouldn't have caused all those injuries. Fair enough. Maybe another item could have done that. A variety. Whereas you're comparing it to a vehicular-based impact death, it's just one vehicle making contact with Noah's body. From the front, side or back, I wonder. As for Noah being dragged along, if that was a possibility, because we did a reconstruction in the past, if he was tied up high enough, maybe the thigh area, the legs wouldn't be dragging or making contact with the ground, would they? Because it'd be kind of up in the air like that. What would be dragging along, depending if he's face down or face up? If face up, it would be his bottom dragging across the ground. Could that friction cause the shredding, the tearing of the shorts? I believe they said it was like grazes or abrasions on the left buttocks or something like that. Maybe it could link. Grazing marks to the bottom area makes sense, caused by something. The fact that the shorts took most of the damage, if you wanted to word it like that. Without the shorts, it could have been worse, the skin, the surface area. Just like how I said, if you're wearing a stab-proof vest, yeah, you might not have a puncture wound. If you're wearing a bulletproof vest, you might not have a penetration wound, bullet hole, but you might have still felt that impact going in as the stopping power, leaving a bruise, if not a broken bone, broken rib, depending on how powerful the impact was upon the force and entry. So I think there's other ways of measuring this case. It doesn't have to all be about the geographical area. It doesn't have to all be about the ping. It doesn't have to be all about the injuries biologically, the anatomical skeleton scale and autopsy. It can be about the clothing, the damage to that. It could be about the blood loss, but not all down to the death situation, but what happened before that with the side-by-side rollover. There's many ways of looking at it, but maybe not everybody gets the chance to do that. People could be caught up within everything else that's ongoing and the discussions. Not that it's people's fault. It can be easy to get caught up. But that's why I do these videos, to try and break through that, to break that cycle. It was successful in the Dylan Rounds case. I'm finally implementing it right now within the Noah Presgrove case, and I think it's quite under control. Hopefully you found this video somewhat interesting. If you did join late, be sure to rewind back to the beginning. We'll leave it there for now. I think I've mentioned enough and it should be clear enough. Feel free to hit the like button and possibly share this video. I'll be definitely sharing this video elsewhere in some places because I feel it's worthwhile, and the video being more original to reach a broader audience and see what those people think and whatnot. So maybe I'll do some standalone videos about the shorts, that situation, play you the clip as well, or reiterate it in a short format just for that awareness, to document, archive, and make it easier to find and track back in the future. Separate standalone short videos, maybe with key questions if they haven't been mentioned already or they're a bit hard to find. And yeah, I mean, there is still coverage on this case, or more coverage from other channels, or some channels here and there. Might not be the most popular ones, but there's something going on. I said, I've made my predictions previously. It's all come to light, come round, predicted it, got it right. Do I have any predictions to say right now? No, I don't have any predictions at this moment in time, so I'll leave it there. My name's Warlike Ref. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time, whenever that is. Goodbye and good night for now.